Hello, everyone. This is Jenny Hepler from COMAROUND, and would like to welcome you today to our webinar on knowledge on campus. So working with knowledge in higher education. We have two great presenters with us today. We'll do the introductions for them in a moment. But before we do that, just a few housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded, so you can watch it at a later time. The lines have all been muted, so if you do have any questions, you can type them into the chat, and we can take questions at the end of the presentation. So just real quick about COMAROUND, who we are. We're sponsoring the webinar today. So we are experts in knowledge management. We're the only independent KCS verified knowledge management solution in the world. And knowledge management is all we do. So we have pre-populated knowledge base with thousands of articles. We also have a self-service portal called COMAROUND Knowledge. And we also provide professional services, which is consulting, and also formal certifications and trainings as well. And we help organizations achieve world-class customer support by using intelligent knowledge, which is your knowledge in your organization, combined with our expertise in knowledge management. So I'd like to do real quick introductions here. We have two speakers today. The first is Julie Mohr. I've actually known Julie for probably more years than I want to really say, but probably about 15 years or so I've known Julie. She's a global speaker, been doing a lot of webinars, presentations for us around the topic of knowledge management. So she has a wealth of knowledge, and she has written the ebook that we'll talk about and go through today. And we also are very lucky to have with us one of our customers. Maria Cronfalk is here from Stockholm University. So she's actually going to tell you all of the things we're going to talk about in knowledge management, all of the conceptions, the ideas, will all be put together and brought together by her in showing how they have used knowledge management in their university, and they've been extremely successful. So by hearing that and her sharing her story, I think you'll find it very valuable. So thank you, Maria, for joining us. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Julie.
Good morning, everyone, from sunny California. I became interested in working with higher education quite a few years ago. I had a customer where we were going through advancements in their IT organization related to service management. And one of the things that I began to see within the university environment is as we move from decentralized to more centralized services, that knowledge was really at risk. We had lots of pockets of knowledge across campus, but being able to leverage that knowledge centrally was quite a challenge. And we began discussing all of the typical challenges that universities face, not just IT challenges, but also business challenges. You know, there's a lot of new dynamics, especially in the United States, where you know, the price of education is going up, funding is going down, and that has presented quite a bit of challenge to manage costs as they deliver the quality of education to students. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to highlight these common threads that occur within university environments and focus really on how knowledge could be used to help make a difference. So these are not just IT problems, but really business problems as it relates to the quality of education and research across campus. So what we see here is right now we've released 3 chapters of the book: the introduction, a chapter on institutional knowledge, and then another one on the diversity of student population. And as you can see, altogether there are 12 chapters. So we've looked at 12 fundamental problems facing universities and looked at the role that knowledge can play in helping the university to better manage those challenges. So when we think about these challenges, I think about the dynamics, especially here in the United States. And it's not only the United States. These are challenges that are being faced globally by universities. But one of the major things that we see occurring is that funding for universities has dropped off dramatically. There's a lot more dependency on the funding that comes from students. And because of this, it's driven more competition. You know, we need to get students to come to our university. There's more marketing around it. There's unique ways in which universities are trying to draw students into the population. And these dynamics, we have to lower the costs, therefore, because we're depending so much on student funding. So when we look at the way this is impacting universities, there's a lot of things that we can do that will help to lower those costs, and especially because so much of what we do resides on IT systems. The first thing that I identified is the institutional knowledge that exists in universities. You know, that idea that this is the way that we've always done it. Maybe one school within the university does a particular business process one way using a system, and another group does it completely different. And what ends up happening is as individuals move to different positions and we begin consolidating services, a lot of that legacy knowledge about how things get done is lost. You know, we very much rely on that institutional knowledge of, oh, go to this person to get the answer for how to do that. So because this has become such a prevalent issue, and because so many of our staff are retiring and moving on from university life, there needs to be an emphasis on capturing that institutional knowledge. And the traditional way that we've always done this is through documentation and putting things up on SharePoint sites. And unfortunately, this is not going to be effective. So we need to begin to develop a knowledge management process that's built into the way that we do our work, so that as that institutional knowledge is uncovered, we're capturing it within the workflow. So this needs to be a campus-wide initiative where we're helping people to understand your role is not just doing the work, but it's also about capturing that knowledge as part of doing that work. And it's often very helpful to start in a particular area where you know you're at risk for, let's say, maybe your student management information system, saying, okay, this is a very important service that we provide on campus. Let's begin by capturing knowledge at that pain point, the place where we're going to need it the most. So we have to develop strategies for how to manage the institutional knowledge and begin capturing what's needed to better support processes across campus. The other thing that we see is that the diversity of students has dramatically increased. Now, in the U.S., we have seen this happen just in the general population. If you look at the statistics that are available, you know, what we saw back in the 1980s is very different than what we see in today's cultural environment. So because our populations are more diverse, this means that this creates a growing need on campus for supporting that diversity. We also see immigration, and that's a global impact to universities, and as well international students that do enroll in your particular university. Now, when we have this diverse student population, this impacts the services across campus. So imagine you showing up at campus, you're in a new country, your native language may not be English, and you're struggling to kind of find your way and connect with people at the university. one of the things that can help anchor our diverse population is when they have access to knowledge that helps to integrate them into that student population and embraces that diversity across campus. And this can be everything from general information to FAQs, but it also can be, access to job sites, assistance for people that may need additional assistance learning English. And because we see this diversity, while I know there's kind of this mentality of throw people into the mix and, they need to learn the language that they're going to be learning in, we still don't want them to struggle. I mean, immersion is great, but when you can't figure out how to pay your bills or get a job, that's really not the environment that we're looking for. So we need to increase access across campus to those resources and make them available to that diverse population. Now, another thing that we see is that, this idea of collective wisdom. When we begin capturing knowledge holistically across campus, that knowledge base is going to be incredibly more powerful than if we just focus in on IT knowledge. We have the infrastructure to do this today. There's so many new technologies and ability to collaborate across campus, not just with IT staff, but as well within those business processes. So this really requires leadership to begin viewing knowledge in a vastly different way. It's not just something that we're doing as an afterthought. It becomes the major focus of what we do. And if you think about this, universities are uniquely positioned to do this. I mean, education is what they do. So this focus on knowledge, being able to say, okay, we're doing, we're enrolling students in classes, and faculty are submitting grades, and we have all these different business processes that are occurring across campus, and we need to begin thinking about knowledge as we're doing those processes. How can we collect it? How can we use it? And this really requires us to throw out those existing models that we always viewed about knowledge, where it's an afterthought, something that we do later. It needs to be embedded, and it needs to be the major focus of what those business processes do. And the power of that is to have a knowledge base that doesn't just reflect pockets of information, but very much is owned and invested in real time, so that the knowledge is constantly up to date. People are invigorated to not only capture it, but to reuse that knowledge so that it can help all the business processes across campus. So this is what we call collective wisdom. We want everyone to be focused on the reuse, improvement, and collection of knowledge throughout all the business processes. Now, one of the benefits of having done that, if we have this change in our culture and we begin capturing this knowledge across campus, is that now we can empower us to make changes, right? Not just, how can we improve efficiencies and effectiveness, but how can we improve services? How can we innovate through new services? And even more importantly, how can we just innovate the way our business models and the way that we're providing education? So one of the things that we find is that organizations are very much, they have a lot of data, and the time that it takes to crunch that data is excessive. But when we capture knowledge within the workflow, we already have a context. We understand when it happened, why it happened, who it happened to. So that context means that the information is now in the knowledge realm. So we don't have to go and look at it and interpret it. We already have information that we can take action from. So it's knowledge in context that really is beneficial to helping us make better decisions. So through the analytics of that knowledge, we can improve efficiencies, gain insights into how to better provide services across campus, and also identify the gaps that we may have. If we build a really great self-service portal and people begin using it, when someone shows up and they start searching for stuff that's not in the knowledge base, that gives us great insight into how we can continue to build more knowledge into that system so that it becomes even more effective. So this is what we call a knowledge-driven strategy, not the I think this is what we need to do, but I know this is the best approach to continuously improve. Now, self-service is not something that's new to campus environments, but one of the keys to self-service is to really build this kind of a knowledge-centered approach to that self-service portal. This means that we have to get end users to adopt it. If you build something great that's easy to use, that's got really, informative information there, you're going to get more successful end user adoption. It also requires a change in culture. We have to, as an organization, understand one of the fundamental ways in which we reduce costs is by providing as much as we can through self-service portals. We have to market it. It needs to begin as students are interested in potentially coming to the university. We can begin educating from that very beginning of interest all the way through arrival onto campus and through their first year there on campus. So we have to begin thinking about this holistically, marketing it. And another really important attribute here is capturing knowledge within the appropriate context. So if it's something that we're doing, we want to, and we're interfacing with a customer either on the phone or through an email or through some sort of a transaction, we know and understand the issue that they're experiencing from their perspective. My perfect example for this is, if someone calls me for support, the way that they describe it to me might be internet is down. But if I put my knowledge article into the knowledge base as network connectivity and they go to use the self-service site, they're often going to type in the internet is down. So we have to begin crafting that knowledge in the workflow while you have the customer on the phone in their context. And that's a very important attribute of the knowledge that increases self-services, the success of self-service. The other thing is we are kind of a population of real time. If you don't know the answer to something, you've got at your fingertips resources that are immediately available to get the answer to that information. So we need real-time processes that focus in on knowledge so that we can make that information as dynamics change across campus immediately available in the knowledge base. So when we have something fantastic, we market it. It's in the context of the end users. We also can increase their ability to find the knowledge in the knowledge base. So that's a very important thing, all tied to the context of the customer. The final thing is that we need self-service interface to be something that's easy to use. It should be intuitive. I find that a lot of self-service sites have way too much information trying to put everything on the first page, or the interface itself is built in the IT context. And we have to really think about what it is that our customers want and in their context and build a self-service site that really embraces their outcomes, not IT outcomes. So when you put all of those things together, you get a much more successful self-service initiative where you can see the reduction in the cost to serve. Now, one of the interesting dynamics, and we've actually changed this into a verb now. Oh, Google this, right? When anybody has a question these days, you're going to Google or you're going to Siri or you'll go to your personal assistant device of some sort. And one of the things that this has done is it's taught everybody that you can get to information fast. If you look at the Google search engine, right, it's easy to use. It's just one box. There's not a lot of information on their front page. You type your question in your context, in the way that you would express it, and it can immediately understand what that is and provide relevant answers to your question. It's definitely got a very powerful search engine behind it, and of course the algorithm is what helps to identify appropriate responses. And when we look at how easy this is to do, and we want to build a self-service site for our end users, we have to be able to build something that has a Google-like impact to our different constituents across campus. right? So if we want to build self-service and we have great knowledge there, it needs to work fast. It needs to have a really good search engine in it. It has to have relevant answers at the top of the list. So it becomes so easy to use and intuitive to use that end users will come back anytime they have questions about things across campus. Now, of course, you can't be in higher ed these days and not understand how important costs are. If you look at some of the statistics, and one of the things that we have in the ebook is in the back, there are all the supporting resources that we uncovered for the research. But I think it's really important to note that the escalation of costs in university environment has far exceeded the cost of living and any other industry. I mean, the one study I found said that it's been more than a 500% increase since the 1980s. And when you look at the breakdown of where we're spending our money across campus, it's not like we have raised salaries or anything like that across campus in that same 500% realm. I mean, it's a staggering number. And part of the problem for the rising costs is this reduce in federal and state funding. But campuses have been driven to reduce the cost to serve in as many ways as they possibly can. There's also this higher dependency on the student fees in order to continue to provide education across campus. So one of the things that we have to think about is how can we help to manage those costs? And knowledge is a very important part of that. We can't just view reduction of cost as a headcount issue, because then we're going to create a lot of risk across campus in supporting those products and services. We have to look at it from a much different perspective, which is what are the services? If we can reduce the number of services, or even better, to eliminate redundant services, so maybe we have one system for payroll in one school and another system for payroll in another school. Consolidating that into one system, one process, will help to reduce costs. So the best way to do that is with really good knowledge about what it is that we do today, where are we spending our money, and being able to go at our plethora of things that we do with knowledge that allows us to look for those redundancies and eliminate these non-critical services and focus on the core assets that the university provides. And through that knowledge, we can get a lot of the cost reduction, as I stated before with the research from the other article, is that self-service is a great way to help reduce the dependency on resources across campus. And so through using knowledge, we can more intelligently look at the ways in which we can reduce the cost to serve, but without putting critical services across campus at risk. Now, another thing, we saw earlier that we have a very diverse population across campus. The other thing is that what that introduces is a language barrier for many of those students. I mean, I was not a fortunate student when I went to school where I was able to take a second language or a third language from the very beginning. If I went to a school, in another country, I would definitely be hampered with my ability to learn the language and understand, what's available to me as a student. So we have to begin looking at strategies that help with English as a second language type of students. In many cases, there's social isolation. They don't feel part of the community. And yet we have these technologies today that can make it seamless for people who speak other languages. The systems themselves can provide a customized interface to our resource. If we had this service portal for students across campus, what would happen if I could provide a layer over that said, oh, I'm a French-speaking native, and immediately change the entire interface into French. So the ability to give multi-language support is so much easier through knowledge management systems, because today they can do auto-translation, they can provide interfaces, that will serve your diverse population in the language that is their native language. And again, our goal is to help make them feel a part of the campus and a part of the community, so that they can then embrace all the challenges that those international students would have as they're being introduced into the new environment. Now, because universities have become so hyper-competitive for students, we also have to recognize that what education you provide, what services you provide across campus, these all become part of the reputation of the university. And so we want not just quality of education and quality student life and quality academic research, we also want to be able to drive continuous improvement so that we're always looking at what can we do better, how can we become the university of choice for many of these students that we are marketing our education to. So not only will knowledge help us to keep our services up and running, but we've actually been able to see how knowledge can free up the capacity of resources across campus so that they can begin focusing on innovative strategies to better serve our student populations. So through knowledge, we move from being reactive to more proactive. We can automate a lot of the services, and all of these things can help drive innovation and really show, our students that are interested in coming to our universities how innovative and just really, and these technologies. I think that the major advancements that we see in many of these technologies, we keep talking about disruption through innovative technologies, but knowledge is at the core to making that successful transition to doing a lot of that disruption and innovation. Now, of course, we can't talk about knowledge today and not also talk about this overwhelming industry interest in things like artificial intelligence and bots. And of course, if we look at just one of our major processes across campus, the onboarding process, so everything that it takes to get a student interested all the way through orientation, arrival on campus, and through their first year on campus, we can use artificial intelligence and bots to actually help with that onboarding process. Because this is such a repetitive thing, we're doing it every term, every year, we have a lot of knowledge if we capture it in the workflow, exactly what we need to communicate to students at what time during that process. And I don't know about you, but I have noticed how my dependency on email has decreased. I seem to get so much email, it doesn't tend to be a channel that we pay much attention to anymore. But when you and again, we may experience the same thing through chat, but one of the things that I've noticed is if I do get a chat message, I respond to it much more quickly, and I pay more close attention to that. So we talk about using a chat bot. Imagine a student being able to automate a lot of that communication that happens through the onboarding process to give them alerts and notifications, to help answer questions. And the beauty of it is that this is available 24/7, 365 days a year, and the response is very rapid. Now, there's a lot of promise there for the use of artificial intelligence and bots, but at the core of this is knowledge. In order to automate that process, you have to have captured a significant amount of information about that process in the workflow so that you have the customer's context and you have reliable real-time information to feed the engines behind the scenes to make the successful adoption of these technologies within this business-critical process. But imagine the power of being able to communicate with students more effectively as they go through. And you're kind of pulling yourself out of the major channel of email and connecting with students in new and innovative ways. Now, we're continuing our research for this book. We have 2 additional chapters where we're looking at student retention strategies. So once students are on campus, how do you help to ensure that you can retain them until they do finish their degree. And then also we depend heavily on student workers across campus and how can knowledge play a role in their success, because they tend to be a little bit more transitional than the staff that you hire across campus. So that's additional research that will be coming over the next few months. So I referenced this book. It is available through COMAROUND's website. Here's the URL. Again, you can download the first 3 chapters, but recognize there are 12 chapters in total. Now I'd like to hand it over to Stockholm University and let Maria talk about just how knowledge has impacted their university and the successes that they've seen through knowledge on campus.
Hello, and I should say good afternoon from a rainy Stockholm. My name is Maria Cronfalk, and I work as an administrative manager at Stockholm University's IT department. I would shortly tell you a little about Stockholm University. The model of Stockholm University was founded in 1878. It became a state university in 1960, and today it is the largest research university in Sweden in the areas of the human sciences and natural sciences. It is also the largest educational university and have the largest teachers training in Sweden. Stockholm University have about 5,500 employees and around 35,000 students. A few years ago, in August 2015, Stockholm University started to use COMAROUND as our knowledge base. Primarily, it was used to spread the IT knowledge from the IT department, and the information is intended both to employees and students. We have actually 2 COMAROUND sites, one in Swedish and one in English. And we don't have exactly every article in both languages, but when we see a demand for an article, we will translate it into English. Before we implemented COMAROUND, we already had a simpler site that was more like a kind of a wiki, where the IT department posted various manuals and other information regarding IT. Anyone on the IT department could post information on that site, but that was meant that some of the articles/manuals were very short, while others were as longer novels, so to say. They all had different fonts, they had different or no print pictures, which meant that everything was very messy and very unstructured. When we were changing to COMAROUND, the first thing that we did was to take an inventory of all the information that was in the wiki that we had. After that, we asked the persons, that was either the administrative managers or the technicians of each topic, to go through the articles that they were responsible for, and after that they would report back to us which articles that could be removed, what's needed to be updated, and what articles that was okay. What we wanted was that everything should have the same look, so that every article that we would move over to COMAROUND, we had to remake. We developed a look that we wanted all of the articles would have, and we decided everything from the font to the size of headings and body text. And we also decided which tools we would use when we had print pictures and what tools we would use to highlight something. For example, a field with a red ring. And this is an example of what an article could look like. After this, a huge work started to do about all the information that would be moved into COMAROUND. We decided, perhaps not entirely in accordance with KCS, and that's knowledge-centered service, to do as much as possible in the meaning of that we wanted almost every article to be moved into COMAROUND before we launched it. Because we understood that if we reserved to the COMAROUND sites, or what we call the service portal, or serviceportalen in Swedish, and you don't find any information there, you will not go back to that place at a later time. At present, we have now about 1,100 articles in total, 770 about in Swedish and about 330 in English, mostly IT related. And we have, from our launch in August 2015, over 1 million views. We have about 59,000 searches, and we have a solution rate about 80%. So that's quite good. As you can see, we don't have a lot of searches, and we think that's because we refer a lot of directly to articles. And on our start side, on our COMAROUND site, we referred a lot to the most used articles. The target for us has been that there should be only one place when you can find information, in addition to the type of information that you find on the regular website, su.se, and we don't really want the same information to be in two places. From our service portal, you can also ask questions, and you can make error reports, and you can add orders to the IT department and some of the other departments at the university. What then happens is that when you go into the links, you will come to a form which in fact belongs to our case management system, Marvel. And when you go into such a link, you have to log in just because you're in another system instead of in our totally open knowledge database. What we also have done is that we have integrated COMAROUND with our case management system. So when someone uses the form to ask a question to the IT department, the person starts to write, and when the person writes, he or she will get suggestions on articles that are in the knowledge database. And hopefully they can already find the right article instead of submitting the question. This is an example you can see here. It's a little bit in Swinglish, but anyway. We have also done an integration the other way around, so to say. That means that when our service desk gets a case in the agent utility, they can, by using the description field of the case, get suggestions of articles in COMAROUND and then easily resolve the case by referring to the article. From the service portal, as I mentioned earlier, you can also get in touch with more departments other than IT. At present, it's the finance department and the real estate department. To them, you can also ask questions, make error reports, and adding different types of orders. They have not yet built up any articles in the knowledge base, but that's the next thing to do. At Stockholm University, it is the IT service desk who is responsible for COMAROUND and all the articles. The service desk has developed a routine about how they work with the articles, which is mainly based on the KCS. This example is about when you get into cases and you will refer to an article, and then the routine looks like this. You search for the question in the service portal, or the agents in service desk do that. Does the article exist? Yes. Is the article up to date? Yes. Then refer to the article and close the case. If the article exists, but it's not up to date, update the article and refer it and close the case. If there's no article, create a new article, refer to the article and close the case. We also get input from other sources when it comes to articles. When something new happens, like system upgrades, or when the new services are launched, or something else. The service desk, they have a close interaction to work out new articles together with the responsible project managers or the administrative manager or the technicians. One of the most important things that we are doing is by different way promoting the service portal. So it would be, so to say, natural that students and staff who needs to come in contact with the IT department or any of the other departments, that they should know where to go and they should go to the service portal. For example, at the Stockholm University website, su.se, we refer to how to contact the service desk. And when you click on that link to see the information about phone numbers, opening hours, etc., you will be linked to the service portal to get that information. We also promote the service portal in other ways. For example, at Stockholm University, we have one time per semester a welcome day for the new students. On that day, the students will get a lot of information in a session in the big aula. And in connection with this event, there is a convention when we from the IT departments are showing the service portal and answer questions that we mostly try to refer to the service portal. And we also hand out small, so to say, business card with the URL address. So what also has been important to us is that we have one person designated as responsible for the entire COMAROUND site, aka the service portal. He's the one who constructs many of the articles, although we are going more and more to have the other personnel in the service desk to create articles themselves. There's also a few more persons who are responsible for creating articles in their specific topics. But it's one person who has the main responsibility to ensure that they comply with the appearance rules that we have set. For us, it's been very important to have the articles to look the same way, so it don't get messy with a lot of different looks. And also what has been important is that we learned about KCS, so we can structure everything around a knowledge base around that. And that's about all I had to say. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions, I will try to answer them or get back to you in an email. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria and Julie. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time that you can add them into the chat, and we'll read them out and answer them. There is one here that's come in, a comment and a question. Having worked in higher ed IT for a number of years, I have to say the content of this presentation is fabulous. Thank you. Will we have access to this presentation deck after the webinar? You will have access to the recording of the webinar on BrightTalk. It will be recorded. But if you want to look at the actual slides or discuss any of the content further, then you can let us know.
Also, don't forget, Jenny, that the ebook has all of this information in it in greater detail. The presentation was just meant to be a summary of the research that we did and the articles that were written in that. So after the conclusion of this, you will get an email from COMAROUND providing access to that ebook. I think that's your best place to start. And before, since we don't have any questions, if it's okay with you, Jenny, I'd just like to make some comments based upon what we saw here from Stockholm. I think what's really interesting is that you see that while their focus initially was in IT knowledge, how they've begun to expand into more business knowledge, which is one of the things that we see when knowledge management is successful. Other groups begin to think, hey, this is working, it's very powerful. How can we begin, kind of embracing knowledge management into the business side of things? So I thought that was really fantastic. And I also love the way that you can see in an actual implementation, being able to serve knowledge in 2 languages. And the statistics of how many hits on how many knowledge articles, that's when you can see real value, when you see that people are not calling in as often, they're able to use the self-service portal. And when you get numbers like, millions of hits, that's kind of a really cool thing to see. So it's great to see not just the research, but also to see these concepts in action in a university and with such great success. So I really want to thank Maria for being here. It kind of gives the impact of this isn't just theoretical, this stuff actually works.
Yeah, thank you. been a pleasure to tell you about how we try to put this up at our place.
Okay, and I have a question. What's the URL to request the ebook? You'll actually be sent an email that will have the URL in the email itself. Okay, nothing further. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'll let everybody have their day back. But thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to speaking with a lot of you in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.